I'm Tim Miller. I want to share with you why pro versus con is not a helpful question in hybrid physical therapist education. And I want to share this with you based on my experience of over 7 years as a full-time faculty member in a hybrid physical therapist program, and also in my scholarly work earning an EDD in educational technology. One distinction that we need to make right off the bat is understanding that emergency remote teaching is not high-quality online education. Because of the pandemic, many educators were forced to really rapidly do the best they could to transition their face-to-face class online, which ultimately led to classes being taught using the same face-to-face techniques, perhaps in a Zoom environment or anything that would allow this rapid transition to allow the education to continue. There's a wonderful article from Hodges et al. In March of 2020 that stated, what we know from research is that effective online learning and the quality of instruction results from careful instructional design and planning using a model for design and development. So that careful design process will be absent in most cases of emergency remote teaching. Again, everyone was doing the best that they could, but we need to make sure that the hurried moves online by institutions doesn't seal that perception of online learning being lower quality. Pro versus con should not be the focus. Face-to-face teaching and learning is primarily discussed on advancing best practices and not as a pro or con, so why should we treat hybrid any differently? Pro versus con, or good or bad a hybrid, is really a gross oversimplification and therefore is not a helpful question. Modes of teaching and learning are not binary or dichotomous, and we shouldn't think of them as such. One media or method is not better or worse, it's just different, with different affordances, characteristics, and different best practices. So I want to challenge us to think of an alternative to pro versus con. So types of questions that would be beneficial to contribute to the body of knowledge is to really consider the many variables in education and not say hybrid's one thing and now let's look at face-to-face is one thing, because there's so many different variables within that on the teaching and learning side, on the student side, etc. So therefore, I'm challenging to set a collaborative research agenda that drives best practices and excellence no matter what the delivery method. So for example, instead of trying to compare face-to-face effectiveness with online effectiveness, we should instead design the study around a particular theoretical foundation rather than putting face-to-face or online in their own distinct boxes. And finally, instead of discussing pro or con of an entire educational environment or delivery method, we should evaluate the specific impact and difference technology can make in the many facets of learning, such as motivation, active processes, interaction with others, ability to transfer learning to real-world situations. The foundational evidence that these examples can provide can allow for thoughtful advancement of the science of teaching and learning. Doing so can provide all of us on how to best leverage the advantages found in all delivery methods and best advance PT education as a whole. Technology and the subsequent instructional media changes very rapidly. Research will always be behind if the questions we ask do not move past the pro versus con or media comparison studies. This is definitely not easy to do. I entered my EDD program wanting to, stand up for hybrid and show that it was just as good as face-to-face. The problem is that approach won't solve any real-world contextual problem. So instead, I landed on investigating student experiences of learning traditional PT skills in a distance-based environment. So had it been on a specific media, blended versus face-to-face, I really would have missed the boat on discovering student experiences that showed how to successfully learn the hands-on skills in a primarily online environment. What worked well, what challenges did they face, and what support is needed. And those results can help in any educational environment to kind of find out what it is our students are doing to learn the skills that we're teaching them. While it wasn't the focus of my study, future research can contrast this with the experiences of students in non-distance-based programs and really focus on how are they learning these skills no matter what the context is. The bottom line is, let's not box hybrid education into a pro versus con conversation. especially if it's based on our experiences with emergency remote teaching. Let's instead focus on what matters: advancing excellence in PT education through robust and collaborative educational research agendas.